Omar, good to see you. It has been a while since we recorded one of these. So I think I'll start off by saying welcome to Technologies of Freedom. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while now. It's the first episode of a new series on Code Ninja Spaces. And obviously we'll be using real news to explain what the series is actually about. And I think to sum it all up, it's open source AI, right? Open source AI is a technology of freedom. It's freedom from closed platforms when your model is open weights. It's freedom from API dependency and so many other things. So I'd love to because I've talked to you about this before. I think tell me, what do you think about this entire concept of technologies of freedom, and then we can jump right into it.
Perfect. Good to connect back. Last time we did this when I was in New York, so now it's great that I'm in the office. Look, I mean, if you talk about OpenAI, if you talk about Google DeepMind, all the big AI labs, if you really see and if you really understand how they got formed, so you get to know that they OpenAI was formed to act as a counterbalance to DeepMind. Okay, AGI or AI is such an important piece of technology. No one company should own it, right? But then what we see is now that really the core vision of these labs, that's not there. They are very much black box and absolutely controlled by big tech. So the core vision, and by the way, I've expanded this vision to Code Ninja as well, our hyper platform, and most of our work what we now do is on open source AI. But the core idea was, okay, what we can do to build that counterbalance. We're not an AI lab as such, but okay, what we can do. So what we thought of, okay, can we take open source AI systems that are out there and harden them for the critical infrastructure use cases? Probably we won't be as good as Claude or as good as say DeepMind or Gemini, but I mean, if we really build some capabilities on top of open source AI systems, which are very good, I think we're there. And then why, from the customer standpoint, why it's important? It's important, like you really want to own the entire stack. You really want to customize, retrain your systems. And the reason why you want to do is if you don't make the thing yourself, and if you don't make the thing yourself, you give up your opportunity to innovate. So, and to make the thing, you need to control the technology. You need to control your data sets. You need to control the weights, everything. And then that's the goal. And that's why we call it, now we have this thing called technology of freedom. And again, this is the idea of technology of freedom was inspired, even the word, by Miru-san recent book. And I picked it up and I said, yes, that's exactly what I want the Code Ninja to do.
Love it. So I think with that, there's three technologies of freedom that I want to sort of break down.
Exactly.
Aaj wale episode, right? So let's break down what happened and why I thought these were the right sort of triggers for us to actually launch a series with this name and this. All right, so we're back. So as I was saying, let's break down what happened and why I thought these were the right things for us to start with this week, launch a series with this name. So this past week at Computex 2026 in Taipei, NVIDIA released Cosmos 3, which is the first fully open Omni model for physical AI. They dropped Nemotron 3 Ultra, which is a 550 billion parameter model with the full training corpus and the recipes that built it. And Noose Research quietly shipped 747 pull requests out of an open multi-agent platform. So there's three releases, three technologies of freedom. Let's get into it. So the fact that NVIDIA has sort of released this Cosmos 3, it ships in three tiers. There's Cosmos 3 Super at 32 billion params. There's Cosmos 3 Nano at 8 billion. And there's Cosmos 3 Edge, which is coming soon for real-time inference at the edge. And I think one thing that I want to, before handing it over to you, I think I want to highlight, because I saw the keynote, and Jensen Huang, ki jo framing thi in that keynote was the big bang of physical AI, and I'm quoting this, the big bang of physical AI is just around the corner thanks to breakthroughs in multimodal reasoning language, vision, and world models, right? And this is so interesting. So, Umar, what are your thoughts on this? For someone building in robotics or autonomous systems in 2026, does Cosmos 3, does it affect the build versus buy equation, or is it still a little bit too early to genuinely affect that balance?
सबसे पहले तो जो NVIDIA का अपना stack भी है, like forget about build versus buy. Even if you compare it with even frontier AI labs, they don't have, when it comes to physical AI infrastructure, they don't have any such model. So open source is a separate thing, but when you talk about physical AI, NVIDIA is doing a lot of work there. Physical AI requires lots of compute, lots of edge compute, and basically physical AI is basically a compute problem, not just an algorithm problem. So Cosmos 3, the stack that NVIDIA has with Cosmos 3, there's no other stack. But the question is like, what you can do with Cosmos 3, what is physical AI, how you can deploy it. So most of these sort of stacks is like, for example, if you're defense, if you're government, if you need to monitor security, if you're building your border systems, that's where this stack comes very handy. So there are two models. One is 8 billion parameters, the other is 32 billion. With 8 billion parameter model, it's a classical use case for edge deployment. Let's say if you want to build a border management system for certain thing, or you want to monitor your roads or construction sites or manufacturing sites and all that, then that's where it's a classical model. You need to deploy multiples of these and then build an orchestration layer, and then that's one use case that you can use these things. 32 billion model is more around, I think is more around where you are building a research lab or AI lab for robots. So the whole idea for world model primarily is how to build the infrastructure for robots to train and learn, right? So camera is a part of this equation, simple cameras, right? So these are the few things in terms of what you can do. But most of the people, for at least जो हमारी audience है उनको तो पता ही है physical AI, because we've been talking about this ever since. But the true thing is it's open source. That's an open source का जो license है इस वक्त जो ये वाला license है, इसमें you get the model weights, you also get the recipe, and you also get the training data set और वो वाला training tokens भी जिस पे ये train हुआ है. So you also reproducibility is now within your hands. You can actually see ये model किन चीज़ों पे train हुआ है, and if you want to retrain it or you want to re-engineer it, you can do it. So ये major चीज़ है कि जो stack है open source का वो बहुत complete है. You basically, someone who's doing it is essentially a physical AI lab. Right? If you're a manufacturing business and you do this, you're a physical AI lab, and not a much deep technical in terms of like कोई research नहीं चाहिए. All you need is good engineers, जिस तरह के हम हैं. So that's it. But the true thing is you own your stack. और जैसा मैं बताया कि when you own your stack, when you make things yourself, then you innovate. Because the idea कि आप problem ढूंढेंगे, आप innovate करेंगे और कोई और आपको बना के देगा चीज, that's wrong. The people who make the things are the people who innovate.
Yeah. And I think now, with some of the workflows जो हम भी अब कर रहे हैं रोज, I think that is something now that I finally understood कि until and unless I'm not.
How hard it is for even to sell these ideas to yourself, to the internal teams. Okay, that's exactly what you want to do. When it comes to AI, the word has a near infinite context. Jensen talks a lot about it. It's a near infinite context. And you want to process that context. And if you want to process that context as per your use cases, it's better to have your own models, train on your own data sets where you control the entire stack. Data sets ka pata ho, and that's your IP, right? Otherwise, to फिर क्या IP है फिर? Like for example, if you're running a large textile manufacturing business and you're competing with, let's say, Bangladesh, or you're competing with India or China, and they are rolling out, especially China is rolling it out across their manufacturing plants, you have no chance to compete in terms of price, because if this level of automation they are going to do it, then how are you going to compete? कोई चांस ही नहीं. फिर यही है कि फिर गवर्नमेंट बिजली महंगी देती है, ये महंगा देता है. I mean, you need to upgrade your stack. Right? You need to get away from saying SAP is a digital transformation. That era is over. You need to do the real. You need to prepare yourself for an AV era, for an era where Optimus are around, right? Optimus को अगर आपके पास एक manufacturing business है, let's suppose, और आप Optimus एक robot खरीद के लाके खड़ा करते हैं, उसको क्या पता लगेगा क्या करना है? ये तभी पता लगेगा if you have your world model of your factory, your systems. तभी पता लगेगा कि how to navigate it all.
100%. All right, अच्छा. So जो दूसरी चीज है, on the same Computex stage, by the way, जहाँ पे ये Cosmos 3 was launched, NVIDIA also released Nemotron 3 Ultra, which is a 550 billion parameter mixture of experts model with 55 billion active parameters per token. Okay? It uses hybrid Mamba transformer MOE architecture with a 1 million token context window, which is, and it ships on June 4th, which is tomorrow. Exciting. अच्छा, so इसके अंदर ये है कि I think what NVIDIA does have is obviously the speed and the cost edge, but there's one thing that the headlines that everybody is running, which is NVIDIA is topping the US Open rankings and all of those things. Those are true, but I think the headline that matters is NVIDIA is realistically still behind China on raw intelligence. And I wanted to bring in I wanted to bring in that excitement as well, because we do like talking about China as well and how they are doing with their open models, so on and so forth. So इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा उमर, I want to hear from you as well, because since they've released it, there's obviously a Nemotron 3 Ultra, and it tops these US rankings, but there's Kimi K 2.6 from China, there's DeepSeek V4 Pro. Both of those still beat it on the artificial analysis index. ठीक है? So is this intelligence, is it still the only metric जो कि ultimately matter करता है, or is this the right framing now for the open weight market in 2026?
यही है किसी हद तक तो ये, बट आई मीन यू टॉक अबाउट 1 million टोकन कॉन्टेक्स्ट विंडो, पहले दिन 1 million टोकन होते कितने, लेट्स थिंक अबाउट इट. सो यू अपलोड ऑल द 12 बुक्स ऑफ हैरी पॉटर इन द सेम विंडो, एक ही चैट में, एंड आस्क एनीथिंग अबाउट इट. And sorry, there was a bit of lag. So what I was saying is, can you upload all the volume of Harry Potter, all the entire series, 12 है मेरा ख्याल है, and in one chat and ask anything. This is 1 million tokens. इतना ज़्यादा context है ये, right? So in terms of NVIDIA, so there are two things here. कि NVIDIA, why NVIDIA is producing models with a scale of 520 billion parameter, ये तो Frontier AI Labs करती हैं. So why NVIDIA has this, why NVIDIA is doing it? उसकी सबसे बड़ी वजह है कि NVIDIA wants to open the stack. NVIDIA is trying to position itself, not trying to position itself, it's basically opening the most advanced models. और उसकी जो major reason है, they want to open the stack because they want not just few AI labs to control the AI at the model layer. And when I was at the keynote in the recent keynote page, so somehow I felt the energy, and the really what Jensen wanted was, because he had these relations with all the big tech, वही तो compute खरीद रहे हैं सारा NVIDIA का, but somehow it felt like that he has built this monster and now he wants everyone in the world to get the benefits of it, not just 3 labs. So he's big on open source, huge. I mean, some of the best sessions that were in NVIDIA where Jensen was moderating, they were all on open source. Right? So I think ये तो एक चीज़ है कि why NVIDIA is positioning itself कि इस 520 बिलियन पैरामीटर को, मतलब लाइक इस स्केल का, ये तो मतलब AGI का ये बना रहे हैं. So the question is, they want to open the weights because they have the compute, they want. और जहाँ तक बात है, हाँ, चाइना से भी, उस लैब ओपन सोर्स पे स्टिल चाइना इज एट द टॉप. US ओपन सोर्स, यस, वो फिर ये, बट इन टर्म्स ऑफ चाइना, बट कोई इतना ज़्यादा गैप अब उम्र रह नहीं गया, स्पेशली अब ओपन सोर्स में आफ्टर दिस मॉडल. अब इतना गैप नहीं है. Probably if NVIDIA kept on this, मेरा ख्याल है in next 3 to 4 months you would see एक पैरिटी पे आ जाएंगे in terms of कि चाइनीज ओपन सोर्स ही नहीं होगा, अमेरिकन ओपन सोर्स भी होगा. इट्स अ वेरी गुड स्ट्रेटजी, बिकॉज अगर आप अमेरिका के अंदर भी देखें तो ऑल द स्टार्टअप्स जो AI के ऊपर अपनी चीज़ों को बिल्ड कर रहे हैं, 90% तो चाइनीज ओपन सोर्स को कर रहे हैं, हम खुद. So the reason is कि you want to own the stack, you want to know, it's you don't want जो इन्होंने रिलीज किए हैं OpenAI ने, वो उस लेवल पे है ही नहीं. So I think ये एक deliberate strategy भी है NVIDIA की, कि how to counterbalance Chinese open source stack, and I think it's very good हमारे लिए तो बहुत. And I want क्योंकि हमारा तो है ये कि every company, every organization needs to build its own AI. अगर आप as an organization, अगर आप खुद AI lab नहीं हो ना आप, इट्स लाइक के फिर कोई आईपी शाईपी नहीं है आपके पास, क्योंकि ट्रेडिशनल सॉफ्टवेयर स्टैक्स जो थे वो तो आउटडेटेड है. आई मीन इट्स ओवर.
अच्छा, so you talked about two things that I want to sort of bring back. एक आपने obviously openness of the stack की बात की, and then you also talked about the reproducibility of these models and
stuff. Reproducibility, yes. यही डिफरेंस है इन मॉडल्स में अब जो आया, जो NVIDIA ने ओपन किया, कि दे ओपन द रेसिपी एंड द ट्रेनिंग कोपस, जिस पे ट्रेंड हुआ वो डेटा भी शेयर कर दिया था.
So इसी के ऊपर मैं बात करना चाह रहा हूँ कि so
under MIT लाइसेंस,
sorry say that again,
under MIT लाइसेंस, उस लाइसेंस में बहुत बेहतर लाइसेंसिंग है ओपन सोर्स, ये नहीं कि बस so पूरा स्टैक ही ओपन सोर्स है.
Right, yeah. So I think and I think it's also like इस वजह से भी it's very very important, because हम इतनी बात करते हैं, we talk about sovereign AI, we talk about owning the stack, we talk about all of these things. I think reproducibility is उस चीज के लिए, at least for that, it is the holy grail in that sense, right? So थोड़ा सा इस पे बात करते हैं. Alongside Nemotron 3 Ultra and Cosmo and all of these, NVIDIA has also released the most comprehensive open dataset stack ever published by a Western lab. Okay, so alongside the data, they have released the training recipes themselves, like you talked about, pre-training recipes for Nemotron 3 Nano. These are all publicly available on GitHub, and so is the Nemo Gym library
Hugging
for
Face पे भी.
Sorry, Hugging Face पे भी,
Hugging
yeah,
Face
exactly.
पे, हाँ.
Right. So let's talk about this a little bit, because I think that every previous open frontier release from major lab has been the model itself only, right? You could आप उसको run कर सकते हैं, you can, but you couldn't extend the training, you couldn't reproduce it. So tell me your thoughts on this.
देखें, अगर खाली मॉडल ही ओपन सोर्स है और आपको रिप्रोड्यूसिबिलिटी नहीं मिल रही, फिर वो तो एक कुछ केबीज या कुछ जीबीज की फाइल है, वो तो कुछ भी नहीं है. ठीक है, I mean, and what you really want is, why do you need an open source AI? The reason you want open source AI is you want to bring your own guardrail safety. आप देखना चाहते हैं कि ये certain situations में कैसे perform करेगा, तो आप data set वगैरह भी देखते हैं, and फिर आप retrain करते हो. You really want कि आप अपने scenarios के according इसको retrain कर लो, weights को adjust कर लो. So उस केस के अंदर you need this reproducibility. इससे पहले डेटा सेट्स वगैरह इस तरह अवेलेबल नहीं होते थे. सो होता ये था, द चैलेंज वाज नॉट द मॉडल व्हेन यू टेक एन ओपन सोर्स एआई, द चैलेंज वाज हाउ टू कोल्ड स्टार्ट द सिस्टम. वो कोल्ड स्टार्ट नहीं मिलता था आपको. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, व्हाटएवर यू वांट टू डू, you want for an image, now you have the model. Okay, now अब डेटा को ढूंढना शुरू कर दो, डेटा कहाँ से लेकर आए हैं, कस्टमाइज. सो वो ओपन सोर्स था भी और नहीं भी था, right? So now I think with this thing, you can, developers would have an access to this data, especially जिस पे ट्रेन हुआ है. अब you really can tweak the outputs. So otherwise, और कोल्ड स्टार्ट एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज था, ओपन अभी भी है ओपन सोर्स के लिए, कि you deploy the model, but then because we're working with certain organizations जहाँ पे आप कोई और मॉडल यूज नहीं कर सकते. So I can see the frustration कि people have these open source AI systems deployed on their machines या servers पे कोड नहीं जाके, and they're trying to access, और अब वो उनसे पूछ रहे हैं जो whatever they want to do, but the responses are pathetic. कुछ चीज़ों पे और कुछ चीज़ों पे बहुत अच्छे हैं. But if you have the corpus data, if you have some training data, so you can tweak it ताकि आपको वो वाले responses मिलें जो आपको frontier models मिल जाते हैं. But otherwise नहीं मिलते तो फिर लोग यूज ही नहीं करते, वो फिर अपना दिमाग ही यूज कर लेते हैं. So what I think is कि ये reproducibility is part of the open source. इसीलिए स्पेशली इसको कहते हैं MDW लाइसेंस है मेरे ख्याल. Most developer worker, I think, right? ऐसे ही है ना, MDW. So ये चीज जो है, that makes it true open source. Otherwise तो फिर बस मॉडल ही था.
And I also think maybe this is something we can take offline, because मेरे ज़हन में आ रहा है something else that I would want to ask. Like, do you think from NVIDIA's point of view, right, if we flip it a little bit, is this the new sort of expectation for us when we talk about OpenAI? Is this what we should be expecting from here on out, or do you think that this is like a one-off thing because NVIDIA has nothing to lose by?
नहीं, I think पहले भी Hugging Face पे मैं तो बहुत यूज करता हूँ. I mean, अब तो Hugging Face पे जाने की भी जरूरत नहीं है. If you're using Cloud Code, Hugging Face का connector है, pick a model even from the Cloud Code, और अगर आप Cloud Code यूज कर रहे हो, just pick a model from there, and वहाँ से आप NVIDIA के डेटा सेट्स पड़े हुए हैं, इसके ओपन डेटा सेट्स पड़े हुए, आप पकड़ें और ट्रेन कर लें. द रियल थिंग इज के डेटा सेट्स उन मॉडल्स, इस तरह एक मेजर फ्रंटियर लैब जैसे NVIDIA है, मेजर लैब अपना ट्रेनिंग डेटा सेट रिलीज करे. दैट्स द रियल थिंग. सो और वो क्या कहते हैं, दैट्स आई थिंक दैट्स अ गेम चेंजर. कि अगर आपने, इफ यू आर फिजिकल एआई, आपकी यूज केसेस हैं, या इफ यू आर फिजिकल एआई कंपनी, लेट्स, सो द इज कि आपके पास फिर इस तरह उनके ट्रेनिंग डेटा सेट्स हो, रेसिपी हो, do it for your customers.
Excellent. All right, so let's move to the last thing that I wanted to bring up for today. We mentioned rather news. So what happened there was they've shipped Hermes agent B0.15.0 on May 28th, maybe 5-6 days ago. They're calling it the velocity release. So the numbers will actually tell you why. There's 1,302 commits already, 747 merge pull requests, more than 1,700 files changed, and over 282,000 insertions, right? So I think you talked about cold start. That's where this kind of came into my mind, and also obviously had it planned for today. So cold start launch is now a full second faster per conversation function calls have dropped by 47%. And the session search function runs 4,500 times faster, going from 90 seconds to 20 milliseconds, and it is now free. So for builders in these regions, Umar, where West's APIs are restricted, those are distrusted, or just very expensive, inaccessible, I think this is the foundation for sovereign agentic AI. And it is available now today, right, with a community that is shipping at infrastructure company velocity. So I want to hear your thoughts on this.
ये बड़ी फिट चीज़ है ये नॉर्मली आपको एजेंटिक ऑर्केस्ट्रेशन नहीं मिलती जो बेहतर हो जिस पे यू कैन ट्रस्ट इमेजिन आपका एजेंट है आपने ऑर्केस्ट्रेशन अपनी कोई इसी तरह ओपन सोर्स पकड़ के उठा लिया एंड यू डिप्लॉयड इट फॉर योरसेल्फ और फॉर द कंपनी एंड एजेंट्स जस्ट गो हेवा so उसमें बड़े challenges हैं so your fallback strategies के okay let's use cloud cowork या for example let's use so आप agentic orchestration किसी major front end lab की use करना चाहते हो you really want is कि you want to outsource some of your work to those agents and you really want to work it reliably एक तो ये but अगर आपने outsource labs देखना है then you use about Glean like platform जो आपको agentic orchestration देते हैं but now with this you can have this orchestration with all open source infrastructure and you can do it the way you like it. So in every open source project, open source is like so वो तो free है GitHub पे जाएं 25 million से ऊपर open source project पड़ा Hugging Face पे जाएं तो AI के 2 million से ऊपर models हैं शायद इससे भी ज़्यादा. It's not about open source. It's about open source पे किसी को ख्याल आया उसने करके मतलब like someone has to harden it. Otherwise, but doing things just open like Databricks, it was an open source project for UC Berkeley. Right? They did it. And then taking that open source project and transforming it into something like Databricks. Right?
Yeah. It's crazy.
So what does it take so उसमें बड़ी effort तो है. So but some now what we've seen is there are people, there are developers, there are companies who are now going extra mile to harden those open source AI systems ताकि we collectively build this counterbalance. To two big AI labs, let's say. You don't want SpaceX, Anthropic. You see what happened to us, right? I mean, we are Anthropic shop. We use Anthropic Claude a lot. You see what happened. हमारा तो सब कुछ ही Anthropic चल रहा है, and then all of a sudden your Anthropic is बंद हो गया. Said कि आपने कोई violation कर दिया. सर कौन सी violation किया? And no, वो robot ने कुछ किया था उनके जो agents हैं उन्होंने, right? That and this level of dependency is just like कि आपका internet बंद हो जाए कि आप use नहीं. I mean, Claude is the new internet. So you don't want okay, what to do? Someone using Claude and someone not using Claude, आपको comparison ही नहीं. It's just like someone using internet and laptop and someone is still registered and copy pencil. कोई comparison ही नहीं. So इतनी power. So we need to make sure as a community to bring these technology of freedom forward. इसीलिए I went all the way to bring this vision as a centerpiece of Code Ninja. Code Ninja would be the company of technology of freedom. We would work on those open source AI systems and we would harden them to act as that counterbalance. जो open AI का vision था वो किया नहीं. Right? For profit हो गया. Anyways, so this is और no further वो require no further thing is required. अब generally अब plumbing है. At some sense AGI हमने already achieve कर चुके हैं. Fairly general intelligence है अभी along the way बढ़ते जाना. I think now it's not a scientific endeavor. It's just about a vision and then actually execution. कि किस तरह ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग maximum own करें stack को.